What if you have an organization that's been set up to be successful in this environment? And then the shifts and changes need to be successful in this environment. You alluded to culture, and you know that culture is the glue for all of that stuff. So we're not going to, we're both preaching to the converted here. How do you, as a leader, make those tough changes when sometimes you don't have the political cover of disruption in there? So what have you seen that has worked, and how important is it to make those people changes within the organization in a way that's doesn't have everybody not hate you, but you know what I mean, that actually get traction?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One, I do think you need to be human. There's been a lot of emphasis on that now, that if you go virtual, you have to be even more human. But you do need to be human. You need to talk to people like they're people, and they're smart, respected people. And so that's the first thing. When you do that and you inquire and you partner with them, it is much easier to do those kinds of things with influence. So there's I think, two little words in any conversation that are incredibly powerful. What else? What else is going on? What else do you think about that? What else is on your mind? What else do you think we might do to be successful? Okay, so those kinds of conversations, if you can adopt those now and be doing them as part of your normal way of leading, go a long way towards, as you said, being able to make some of this stuff happen, even if you don't have some external disruption. The other thing is, keep your eye on the prize. Again, go back to your destination. What's your vision? What is the objective? Framing things in terms of how what you're doing is in service of getting to that destination is super helpful. And again, if you do that habitually throughout the period of execution, it's not quite as jarring, I think, for people. I almost prefer, I was leading a huge team. We were doing a major transformation of how all of the core business functions operated in service of their strategy, the strategy. And this is when I was inside corporate, responsible for 18,000 staff, 2 countries, 15 lines of business, and I don't even remember the count of how many locations we had. It was very decentralized, and we're trying to bring it together and make it more centralized so that we could streamline what was going on, as well as create new opportunities for people. And the approach had been much more kind of either small fiefdoms, and yes, I'm deliberately using the word fiefdom, medieval, in that conversation. There were small fiefdoms, and there were also lots of folks who were really good at getting things done, and yet so challenged by the nature of the systems. Like they were like heroic to get payroll done. And you say, payroll should not require heroics, right? It just shouldn't require that, even though these people were really great at it. It's like, this shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't need that. So it was things like that, but they were still quite wedded to it in many respects because it worked. And my team, the team that I was leading, was kind of discharged throughout the 2 countries and the functions, really trying to help folks figure out how we're going to do finance, accounting, HR, IT, all those, purchasing, all those key processes and functions completely differently. And we weren't always the most welcome people in the room at all, like really not. Kind of fun at times, yeah. So we'd show up thinking, okay, they hate us already, so that's awesome. And they don't want to do what we're going to do. So how do we get past the bobblehead routine? You know what the bobblehead routine is? The bobblehead is what, you know what a bobblehead is, right? The dolls, the guy with the head, and the head's like, goes that, right? Okay, so when you're in a meeting and you kind of go, okay, guys, we're going to do this. Everybody in agreement? And you kind of get the, yep, in the meeting, and then you leave, they're nodding their head up and down. And then as soon as they get out the door, the bobblehead goes the other way, because if you move your bobblehead on your desk, it goes in all different directions. So don't want those. You don't want bobbleheads. It doesn't work very well for you, right? So one of the things we started doing very often when we meet with resistance in trying to get something to go forward was, what will it take?
Hmm.
And then, so you ask, well, what would it take? What would it take for you to say yes? What would it take, do you think, to make that successful? Or how might we make that meaningful for your team? Would be the key things we need to do? And so each time you hit kind of a no sort of answer, whether it was explicitly no or heck no, or in, you know, when hell freezes over, or any other version of no, start breaking it down, the barriers. And what we found was that it wasn't always just about, I don't want to do this, or not in my backyard, or any of those other kinds of stereotypical negative attributes. But a lot of times they had very valid concerns expressed solely as a block. I'm not going to do this, or I don't want to do this, or I'm sure as heck not going to make it easy for you to do this. And so we kept drilling down, and we would get tons of insights around both how to make it work for them effectively, as well as being able to say your perception of what's going on, disavow them of misperceptions. And then, you know, sometimes you do say, I understand, and yet this is happening. So how do we make this okay? How do we make this as less painful as possible? And then the question, what else? What else do you think we could go wrong in that? What else do you think might make that easier? What else could we add or subtract? Or what else might we talk about to help people relate better to what we're doing, or to really understand what's going on? And just keep kind of doing that. And by the way, the greater the uncertainty, the other thing you need to do, or the greater the resistance, ask questions. You need more questions and listen.
I'm smiling because, you know, as facilitators who use the Socratic method, you know, I just don't even say anything. All I just do is ask questions to the point of annoying people, but sometimes that's what you got to do. What I'm actually just really taking away from this is, it sounds like this was, you know, a large organization. I'm sure it applies for large or small, and we have people all over the world, so you have different circumstances, but none of this has to do with like a tactic. None of this is a strategic priority. Like, none of this is the strategic planning stuff. This is literally just talking to people and pulling it out of them and getting them engaged in it, to both sort of come up with the how, to have them be engaged in the how, and to mitigate the like perception between like your reality and their reality, so that there is one reality. Because if you're both looking at different things, then there's no way you're going to have the same like sort of scope of the problem.